Well, I think given that we're come to the end of season 2 of the podcast today, it's a fitting time for us to reflect on holidays. We're coming up to Christmas break. We have probably a lot of us reaching the end of that, the draw up to Christmas as we go, I just need a break. And I'm really curious to know just how many business owners are taking holidays, a real break, not I'd love to get this done over the holidays break, which is the trap I fell into when I started my first business, but an actual turn off from everything break. Because when we were doing research for the book, the stats that we found were that 43%, so little under half of small business owners take at least 4 weeks annually. That's leave away from the business. And a little over 25%, 2 weeks or less, and 14% don't even remember when they took their last holiday. And it's interesting because this kind of resonates with when I think of some of our clients, some of my colleagues out there in the business world. I think of Jody, one of our clients who had not had a holiday without contact to the business in years prior to working with us. Like she could not remember a time she didn't have to take the phone with her, do some work while she was away. And then just her joy and elation at that first holiday break that she took with no contact, not even from her children, adult children. Mom, could you do this? She was switched off completely, which was amazing. And I remember Michael, he was a franchise holder of a GJ Gardner business back in Bairnsdale. Amazing guy, amazing business. But he was always taking a laptop with him. He'd go away sometimes on a conference and they'd have a holiday afterwards. And there'd always be that contact with the business. So not even a real break. And I just think that this is so important for us to pause and think about what is it for us? Are we actually getting away? Are we making the time and the difference to do that? Why do you think that matters so much, Nick?
Well, I mean, the thing that's coming up for me as you're talking through this, Ness, is one of the key things is we didn't go into business to have think about it, a job where we don't even get our 4 weeks annual leave a year. So,
Yeah.
if you're listening, you're a leader, a business owner, I bet you anything, your team, you encourage them to take holidays because there's some really good upsides. From a business point of view, there's good cost risk management in terms of not accruing too much annual leave, but also when you have a holiday, it is so good for your physical, mental, emotional health. When we don't have holidays, when we keep doing the grind, we get stuck into the day to day and get stuck in the busy trap. Let's face it, we're actually not living with optimal energy. We're maybe more crankier humans. We're not as great to be around. We're
Yeah.
probably not showing up in our relationships as well as we could. But it's really easy for that to become the norm and we don't even realize it. So I think there's a few different benefits. There's a business cost, benefit. There is just being a healthy, happy human benefit. And we've talked a fair bit over the last few months about this entrepreneurial addiction. When you are not taking your holidays or not switching off, we know that also statistically 77% of business owners think about their business while still on holidays. We might think about it every now and then, but that link to entrepreneurial addiction, if you're not taking holidays and understanding what's driving that and why, or if you're one of the 14%, I think it was, that don't remember when the last time they took a holiday, it might be really uncomfortable when you first do, because you might feel lost. So there's that link around if you're feeling lost and you don't actually know how to have holidays and switch off anymore, you could be addicted to your work, which is a fairly easy trap to fall into. So I think there's a few different reasons there to have a look at around, making sure, hang on, if I'm whatever percentage you fall into, what has actually stopped me? What is
Yeah.
stopping me? And if I am one of the 43% that are actually taking at least 4 weeks, am I switching off? Because that's another factor. Am I taking my laptop?
That's right. And that terminology, leavism. Leavism meaning that you're thinking about your business whilst you're on holidays, or even if you're sick, you're thinking about and doing something to do with business. So It's I remember my partner and I, he loves going on cruises. And one of the things that he said to me before we went on our cruise was, there's actually no mobile range.
Yeah.
You can like you won't be able to, or Wi-Fi must be no Wi-Fi range. You can pay quite
Mm,
high amounts per day to get access to Wi-Fi on the ship. And it always amazes him that because he's a very early riser, and so he'd be down having coffee as soon as the doors open in that area. And he would see particularly men, but he would see people sitting on their laptops working. And he
mm.
thinks to himself, hey, mate, you're on a holiday. Like, be with
Yes.
your family. You have got so many options of things you could be doing with your time on a cruise. And are you really that important? Like, he just doesn't come at
Yeah.
it from that concept. Like, are you just trying to stroke your ego around what it is? Now, I don't want to take away from the fact that sometimes, there could be really big things happening in the workplace that you need to be a part of. And sometimes it does feel like a good compromise to be spending part of the time with your family and then part of the time working. But really, what we're wanting for you to think about from this conversation today is how can you find an opportunity to take time out where you actually switch off? Because there are benefits to that. And we think about it's now law in Australia around not being able to contact people, employees outside of work.
Mm,
That was something that actually went into law as you were studying and researching for the book, wasn't it,
mm.
Nikki?
Just in the last few months. So the right to disconnect. So next quick question. How did you feel about not being allowed to take your laptop and not having internet range on the cruise?
Actually, really freeing.
Mm.
Yeah, it's been like initially I go, no, I don't mind taking my laptop. But then I went, but my phone? What? No Instagram?
Yes.
Because sometimes I associate
Yeah.
that with downtime and that with fun. So
Mm.
what excites me about that is actually being fully present to enjoy whatever comes up in the moment and for us to actually just have some time together without distractions of the world. So,
It's like going back to the old, we kind of talk about in the book a little bit about this going back to the old ways or this slow living movement. And
mm,
interesting because even it might be not technically work, but the socials, the doom scrolling,
yeah,
or, sometimes there's a crossover. And I think another important point that was made is that if you are having an intentional work from anywhere holiday, if you're having an intentional like you said, I want to pause on that moment for a minute. That could be different. You might have times and holidays, which is like a working holiday. So
yeah.
that's great. And are you also having time where you can completely
Mm,
switch off? And so many conversations I feel like I've had, and I know my goal was to have a work from anywhere business, but also now I'm like, yeah, but I want to have more than 4 weeks holidays because I own my own
yeah.
business. Like this is the
Yes.
thing. And Jody is such a great example of that, installing a team and helping coach them so that they can step up so that she can
She
step
can go.
back. This
Yeah.
is not a unique kind of story. So I just had to jump in and
That's right. And it's
yeah.
almost like, if you can find somewhere that has no mobile range, that's probably an added bonus.
Yeah, Norfolk Island is another good one.
I remember,
Yeah.
I always remember when back in when my son was in high school, so attached to his phone 24/7, we went to Walhalla for a day. Walhalla's in the country in Victoria. And I said to him, there's no mobile range there. And I remember we arrived, he gets out of the car and he's checking his phone. He goes, Mum, my phone's not working. And I went, yeah, I know. I told you there's no mobile range. And he's like, yeah, but I thought when you said no, you meant just really bad mobile range.
What?
I'm like, no, 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 absolutely none. So sometimes that force to switch off
Hmm.
is quite incredible to have that experience, to
Mm.
be really present to where you are and what you're doing.
Isn't that a great example of where we are in this modern day world as well, and what the
Yeah.
younger people, the younger generations, by
Yes.
no means not much or poor quality, like
Yeah.
no actually means nothing. Yeah, yeah. What? There's still
Uh,
places in the world where there's no mobile range.
that's right.
That is a good strategy to do. If you are finding that it's really hard to switch off, then you can choose places that have, like a cruise, that
Yeah,
has no
exactly.
or expensive, as long as you don't get sucked into paying for the
Yes.
extra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you think needs to happen if somebody's resonating with that small percentage of people? What did we say it was? 14% not even remembering when they had the holiday, or
Mm.
just only 25% taking, 2 weeks. What do we need to shift within us in order to be able to start that change in the way that we view the importance of taking leave?
Well, I think we need to, first of all, ask yourself, actually, here's a good one. I would take a holiday, but, and finish
Mm,
that sentence and see what comes up. Because it's either going to be something quite obvious like I don't have the team, or my team aren't ready for me to step away, or I actually don't have a leader that can take over. It's the sort of the obvious ones, but it could also be something a little bit deeper, because the first place we want to have a look at this is what are our beliefs telling us. We were just guests on a podcast and had such a great conversation this morning about we talk about this a lot, those beliefs that are continuously embedded in us as kids as we grow up around hard work, around success. It could be a belief that's saying, well, I'm the boss, so I have to work the hardest, as an
mm,
example. Or
mm.
I don't want my team to see that I'm slacking off, as another example. You may resonate with that, but you might not. But really, when you ask yourself, I would take holidays, or if you take holidays, I would switch off, but whatever comes after that but is the biggest barrier. And again, could be really obvious structural things, but dig deeper. You could even ask yourself that a few different times to see, it's like, what else? What else?
Yeah,
That'd be my
that's a really
starting
good
point.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that belief system around who you are. And I guess the thing that also comes to my mind is the entrepreneurial addiction, that inability to switch off. And, one of the problems that some business owners face when they are able to extract themselves from the business, when they do develop a team who can do their work on their behalf, is that sense of there's a sense of loss, almost that ego isn't
Mm.
being stroked every day because you are the person that everyone must go to. There's an element of martyrdom, I think, that comes with that. It definitely makes us feel important and significant when something can't exist without us.
Yeah.
So even though we might have a belief that, oh no, I hate that. I hate the fact that everybody's relying on me and I've got to be the centerpiece. But there's some safety and comfort, I think, within that as well. That we're fulfilling our need for significance when somebody needs us to solve their problems.
Yeah.
So having that really important and answering that question around, I would have holidays, but I really want to challenge our viewers and listeners to think about, am I the roadblock to this?
Mm-hmm.
What is
Mm.
it that I'm believing about me in the business that is stopping me from being able to take this leave? Because everyone is deserving of it. And
Mm.
we know that there actually is a problem with people who overwork not being productive. So,
Yes, definitely.
like if we're talking about the ability to go away, what I love about being away from everything is you get to be creative. Maybe you
Mm.
get bored, or maybe you seek adventure and you have so much going on that it sparks ideas, it rejuvenates us, it gets us back into that space of being innovative and thinking of all these ways that we can enjoy our life, but then we can bring that newly, I guess it's the renewed, um, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like this vigor that comes back into the business with fresh eyes and feeling rested.
And it's really hard to see that we're not in that place when we're stuck in that busy trap and we're not taking holidays, but we feel like things are working okay. It's like when you do step back, sometimes in hindsight, it's like, wow, okay, yeah, I really needed a holiday, or I really needed a break before that. And I think a barrier can also be that whole like, if who am I if I'm not that person that's constantly needed? Who am I if I'm not the person that steps in and saves the world, i.e.,
Mm,
solves all the problems? So another really good thing that you can do is actually it's about replacing it. So if you go on a cruise, do something where you're actually filling that time with something else
yeah.
that's a little bit more resourceful. And another key element of this is see to believe. So who do you know around you that has a successful business that are taking 4 weeks minimum? Guys, if you're a
Yeah.
business owner, 4 weeks minimum. If you're a leader, make sure you're taking all of the
Mm,
leave that you you have, but who around you is doing it and doing it well. And this is an
Mm,
opportunity to reconnect to what you enjoy, what you love, what's fun. And that's different for different people. So get curious and explore, like you said, Ness. And we too often avoid the boredom, but the boredom is magical because that's where creativity comes. That's why kids get so
absolutely.
creative, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing that comes up as we're talking about this for me is we think about the culture in a business. So have you got a culture that you have perpetuated yourself as a business owner, or you're ingrained in somewhere where you get a badge of honor for being the person who is never taking holidays
Mm,
because you're always available, you're always there. No, no, I'll work through Christmas and I'll work through Easter and I'll do that. It's I is the culture around we work long hours. What we know from the book is anything after 50 hours a week, you're actually no longer being productive.
I know. I
So
couldn't believe that stuff. I mean, I could, but
yeah.
yeah,
So if you are someone who resonates with working really long hours, it's probably going to be harder for you to take that break away because you have potentially created an environment where people are over reliant on you
mm,
because you're setting the way for them. And so even though you may really, really want to be able to disconnect from the workplace, you could have created an environment where that's not possible. And I
yeah,
think that if that's the case, what's your plan? What's your plan to work towards to building your leaders up to being able to cover in your absence? The thing I always love talking about with business owners is let's plan for you to sell the business, whether you sell it or not, because the
yeah.
decisions that you will make in setting up a business to be sold are going to have to mean you step away because no one's going to want to buy a business where you got to work 80 hours a week and you never have a holiday. Like, where's the
Exactly.
value in that?
Oh my gosh, totally. I mean, again, I just go, even the 25% that are taking 2 weeks or less, like we get more when we are employed. We
Yeah,
get more holidays and more support, like not necessarily, well, I don't know if we get more support, but we to actually take holidays, like what this one precious life we'll come back to. This
yeah.
one precious life that we have, is it just to work hard and grind? Ah, there's got to be more to it. So Ness,
Absolutely. Yeah.
what do you think is an actionable action that our listeners can, who are really thinking about this, what can they do with this information other than book a holiday
Yeah, I was
today?
going to say, well, number one, book some time
Even if it's
off.
a day, even if it's a
That's
day,
right.
whatever, like just book some time off.
And my belief used to be, unless I had somewhere to go, there's no point in taking time off. Like I've
Yes.
struggled with this. But then last year I booked a week off around my birthday and it was spring and I just had a week at home and I potted and I decluttered and I did little jobs and I really actually quite enjoyed that.
Yes.
So I had to break my belief pattern around you've got to actually be going somewhere to have a holiday. So, I guess in light of that, my actionable action is coming back to one of the things we talk about in the book called outrageous opposites. So, if we have, I would have a holiday, but, and we've come up with all our list of things as to why we can't, what would be the completely outrageous part of that? The other side, the flip side, right? So, for example, if it's because, I need to be available to my team all the time, would the outrageous opposite of that be, I'm going to take 6 weeks away from the business? And then if
Mm,
you go, wow, what would I have to do to end up with 6 weeks out of the business? What structure or systems would need to be in place for me to do that? So I really want to challenge your thinking. If you are not in that percentage that are taking a minimum of 4 weeks, let's get really, really clear on what the block is. And then just the starting point would be to flip it and go, what would be the completely outrageous part of that? And then really sit there and go, well, how would I plan that out? Because if you go six weeks in your mind, you can bring that back to 4.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
I feel like new rule, all business owners, minimum 6 weeks annual leave,
Yeah.
which is going to create some interesting feelings for people listening. It absolutely makes sense. So write down what the barriers were through, I would XYZ, but, or I would switch off, but, And then what's the outrageous opposite? Don't get too caught up on, but it's not, it can't happen. Just write it down, and then you can start to get curious and creative about how to make it happen. And I do think also look at your calendar. If you don't have any holidays or days off in the next 3 months, 6 months, this is actually the perfect time of year. So Ness and I, at this time of year in December, or sometimes even in November, we'll block out our 12 months of holidays for the next year. Now, some of it might change. That's fine. We'll change it. But there's something about having it in the calendar. Even if you are just putting an extra day somewhere, if that's a stretch for you, put something in your calendar as well. I'm going to pop that as a bonus
Absolutely.
one.
And if you are taking holidays over Christmas, and some businesses do, that's their peak period. So you're having it
Mm.
elsewhere. We just want to say, have a beautiful break. Enjoy the healthiness of being able to step away and just refill your cup and spend time with loved ones. And we are excited to be back in your listening ears again for season 3 next year.
Oh, who can believe we're here? Have a beautiful
I
holiday,
know.
everybody, and see you next year.
Okay, bye.